be able to locate some more forms of engineering. The period of the 1880s to 1920s, I want to mark as the rise and as marking the rise of corporate capitalism in the United States, originating initially in the structure of railroads and railroad companies. Especially the Pennsylvania Railroad was the first large-scale bureaucratic corporate structure, but marked also by a number of other features. The rise of corporate capitalism, as opposed to the small machine shops or larger manufacturing shops, the rise of corporate bureaucratic structures included a turn to science, the appropriation of science as a means for controlling knowledge. You'll find in this period the development and use of more systematic patent procedures, developing patents, coming up with ideas, and then getting patents in order to be able to control markets. And the names of such people as Edison, Bell, Graham Bell, George Eastman of Eastman Kodak, you see the establishment and expansion of more organized laboratories. The Delco system, the Dayton Engineering Laboratory company, was drawing on this tradition somewhat. What was unique in General Motors was its deep institutionalization alongside already established manufacturing. In industries, in the emerging electrical industry and chemical industry, science became crucially important sources of new ideas and new products. The period of the 1880s and 1920s is also a period of labor struggles over labor. You may have remembered talks about strikes. In some cases, there are famous massacres, Haymarket, for example. The period of the 1880s and the end of the 19th century mark the rise and expansion of organized labor as a force that is trying to balance, challenge capitalism on behalf of workers. And the late 19th century, early 20th century also marks the establishment and expansion of government regulation. This period includes the label that you've probably encountered of the so-called robber barons. The late 19th century first revealed a limitation in the American system of enlightened self-interest. Throughout the 19th century, intelligent capitalists were quite legitimately maximizing self-interest. And as we discussed earlier, the maximization of self-interest works well when persons are small relative to one another. But as some individuals and some companies were able to take over entire markets, sometimes by underselling for a while in order to force somebody else out of business and then incorporate that business. This was done regularly with railroads, for example. In a system whereby one or a small number of individuals can become very large, the idea that maximizing one's own self-interest contributes to the maximizing the interests of all starts to fall apart. And so government in the late 19th century, federal government and state governments to some extent, in the early 20th century begin to institutionalize regulatory structures, beginning with passage of the Sherman Antitrust Act, and then later on the establishment of federal regulatory agencies. Nonetheless, corporate capitalism and corporate structures are becoming dominant and a dominant source of employment for engineers and a dominant form of a dominant structure for the production of new products and for economic developments in the United States.